Hey guys, Bobby Loads here. I just want to let you know that SuperEGO is a great company and that all these drivers are liars and everything they said is not true. And if they had a negative check, it was not because it's not because SuperEGO did something wrong. It is because they had breakdowns and had to pay for them. I also want to let you know that SuperEGO and all the other 137 companies that they're not related to, they're all great companies and you should go check them out because they treat their drivers very well. I also want to let you know that the Serbian president is a great man and he is not half Albanian. And personally, me, Bobby Loads, I love Serbia and I love SuperEGO. Please go check them out.
What's going on, good and wonderful people? It's Taja here, and I'm back with another banger today. So, ever since that Florida Turnpike crash in August of last year, we have the news outlets, the FMCSA, the DOT, the current presidential administration, content creators, you name it, essentially exposing the Pandora's box, opening up the Pandora's box, rather, of the wild, wild west of trucking.
So it's called Operation Highway Sentinel, and it is now in full swing. ICE ramping up its crackdown on illegal immigrant truck drivers following a series of awful, deadly crashes.
Well, right. It can actually mean a number of things, but in a letter to Governor Walz and Public Safety Commissioner Bob Jacobson, a few examples are given of immigrants from Somalia, El Salvador, Ukraine, and other countries where these drivers were issued Minnesota CDLs that are valid for years after their documents that give them the right to work in this country actually expire.
We're the freaking news, okay, and we're calling it like we see it. What I see right there, and you're going to see the other part of this video here in a second, that's a foreign freaking driver running into somebody stopped at a red light. And this is a foreigner that doesn't understand English.
How do you read road signs? Yeah, you going on bonehead truckers. How do you read road signs, dude? You can't speak English. This bonehead right here can't speak or read English, but he's out here on our roads. Illinois plates.
Now, I've been covering chameleon carriers, shady carriers, scam carriers on this channel for the past 2 years now at this point, and it all started with the OG Chicagoland trucking carrier or company, whatever you want to call it, by the name of SuperEGO. Now, despite the several anecdotal stories featuring accusations, allegations of drivers' experiences with SuperEGO, they continue to deny all allegations.
Right, we got to put SuperEGO out of business. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I can't make it up to you. Everybody just need to stop going to SuperEGO. Go anywhere but SuperEGO. We got to put that company out of business because it's opening up avenues to use the same technique that SuperEGO using on us. Put their foot on our neck, take all the money, not give us shit. We ain't getting paid shit. I just seen the driver post a video yesterday, a female trucker that left her stranded out there in Chicago. In California. They was giving her like free money to get back and all type of crazy. She was leasing the truck, so she done put $5,000 down on the truck. Like, bro, we can't keep giving these companies ideas on ways to fuck us. That's my thing. You know, it's bad enough the brokers got their foot on our neck. The shippers and receivers got their foot on our necks, keeping us here all the time, 100 hours out the day. Don't give a fuck about our clock. Don't care about if we got to go to the next load. But we can't let these companies keep practicing the same shit, especially these Chicago companies. I know.
And now, finally, this company has been exposed on national TV by the latest and greatest CBS special, 60 Minutes. Now, in this segment, 60 Minutes decided to focus on chameleon carriers. And for those of you who are new to this channel, chameleon carriers are companies that shut down, reopen under new names, get new DOT numbers, and essentially wipe their history clean. Now, the FMCSA has taken steps to crack down on chameleon carriers. Last month, I believe, or the month before, I'm not sure at this point, Sean Duffy announced that carriers are no longer allowed to buy or sell DOT numbers because it used to just be easy to just, buy a new DOT number off Facebook. These Facebook groups would advertise it like it's nothing, but that's no longer allowed. However, it's kind of hard to stop fraud like this, especially when you're dealing with big companies like SuperEGO that have been at it for several years. And it's even estimated that it can be potentially hundreds of companies that are operating under SuperEGO's umbrella right now. Companies tied to SuperEGO have been responsible for over 15,000 safety violations over the past couple of years.
Its driver was going 72 miles an hour when it plowed into this school bus, critically injuring 2 children. According to DOT data, chameleon carriers connected to SuperEGO have logged almost 15,000 safety violations and 500 accidents in the last 2 years.
And according to this CBS investigation, these companies are able to avoid law enforcement and stay on the road due to the potential several hundred trucking companies associated with the SuperEGO brand. Now, obviously, this has to end. Ultimately, stuff like this hurts smaller trucking companies, large trucking companies, you name it. They're actually abiding by FMCSA DOT regulations. And not only does it hurt these companies, it also hurts otherwise good drivers that are, caught up in bad, shady carriers like Chicagoland carriers, like SuperEGO. And these companies that do everything by the book, the drivers that do everything by the book, they follow the laws and everything. And it's just, frustrating when you see companies that can essentially erase their history overnight like it's nothing and continue to be out here on the road with the other 260 million Americans sharing the road as if they are just completely fine, like nothing happened. But all this is coming to an end, hopefully. You got to err on the side of caution when it comes to these companies. But it's really just impossible, damn near impossible, to hold companies like this accountable if they're constantly changing, their DOT numbers and essentially playing a cat and mouse game with the FMCSA. Now, this is actually something that I came across my YouTube feed from a mutual of mine, Calvin Leet, top rope, shout out to you. But he actually posted this on his community tab about SuperEGO, and it actually accuses the company of swapping VIN numbers on trucks. Now, these are allegations, of course, and it says here that carriers duplicate VIN numbers across multiple trucks to bypass insurance costs, exposing serious fraud and regulatory enforcement concerns. Now, the 60-minute special did not specifically touch on VIN number fraud or duplication, but because of all the other allegations that this company is being, accused of, it wouldn't surprise me that, they were actually swapping VIN numbers on trucks at this point.
Bogus VIN numbers, right? So here's what happened. A man in Florida was arrested after selling 23 semi-trailers using fraudulent VIN numbers in a scheme worth over $287,000. The trailers were real, the paperwork matched, and the deals moved forward without issue. But the VINs had been altered or misrepresented. Investigators recovered 18 of the 23 trailers. Still looking for the other 5. I don't know, maybe Eric knows where those are. But this asset identity fraud, it's not cargo theft. This is not a case of stolen freight or hijacked load. It was identity fraud and asset level with the VIN number systems. Nothing is sacred anymore. They're going after the VIN numbers.
Now, we're just going to take a moment to zoom in on the day-to-day operations at SuperEGO and what the drivers themselves are experiencing. Now, they're heavily recruited through aggressive marketing. At first, this company was advertising that drivers can get 88% of the load back in 2024. But, of course, accusations, allegations, and an impending lawsuit actually made this company backtrack on that 88%. They're now offering 75% of the load. And it doesn't even really matter much because they're still misrepresenting the rate cons and misleading drivers into believing they're going to get paid one amount, but in actuality, they're actually getting paid a different amount. But again, accusations, of course.
Drivers also told us the company would shortchange them by altering delivery contracts or rate cons, which confirm how much a broker has agreed to pay to move freight. A percentage of that goes to the driver. Court documents show this rate con sheet on the left is the original. This fraudulent one on the right shows a cut of $700, resulting in reduced compensation for the trucker, a practice captured in this call between a dispatcher and another driver.
Can you please send me the other document that the broker sent you?
Yeah, I can send you, but why?
He told me that he was sending out the rate con for $1,500. And then 5 minutes later, you call me and tell me I'm getting $300. Do you see what it looks like?
In fact, this is really just a game to them, exploit, drain, and, steal from American truck drivers to the point where they're essentially working for free. Now, this driver right here, his name is Daniel Sanchez, and I believe Daniel was actually recruited by SuperEGO back in 2025. Now, in 2025, there was more than enough information on the internet that would have deterred you from this company. Now, a simple Google search would have sent you down a rabbit hole to a bunch of trucking forums, a bunch of trucking groups. You probably even came across my videos that I made about SuperEGO. Ever since that 60-minute special aired, I see on my YouTube page that, my little video that I made about SuperEGO a couple years ago is actually getting some traction now. You probably would have came across Lockout Mid's videos about SuperEGO. He literally has a series dedicated to driver stories with the company. It's literally insane. How do you not see that and think to yourself, this company is promising me the world. I should probably go there. It's my dream to become an owner operator. How do you not do your research on this company? I just don't get it. Or maybe, just maybe, these people are doing the research on the company and they're just dismissing it as noise and essentially effing around and finding out. That's probably the more plausible explanation to all of this, because this is literally insanity. And I didn't even touch on the ELD fraud that this company is accused of.
Drivers also told us they were being pressured to drive more hours with less sleep. After they'd already logged 11 hours behind the wheel, the legal limit, managers back in Serbia would illegally reset federally mandated time clocks, as seen in this animation, to give drivers a fresh set of hours.
I was coming home with negative amounts on my check.
Negative money?
Negative, yeah, it was in the red. I was doing around 600 to 800 miles a day with that company.
And you come home
with zero.
Who is this host on 60 Minutes? Is that Lester Holt? I'm not sure. I have to go back and find out who was actually doing this investigation and reporting on it. But yes, he tells Lester Holt, I think that's his name, that he was driving 600, 800 miles a day. Some days he was even driving 18 hours. And essentially, he was bringing home a negative paycheck, less than zero. He's basically worse off than broke working at SuperEGO.
There's been a time where I was driving for 18 hours. And I told him, I said, I'm done. I'm going to sleep and parking. The text message said, they don't care about that. They're not paying for you to do anything but use the restroom and drive.
But the thing about it is, Daniel, you weren't getting paid at all. You were not making any money at SuperEGO. Like I said, you were better off just being broke. But working at SuperEGO, you're worse than broke. Like I said, it's just amazing. This is why these lease purchase programs have to end. He literally gave up $35,000 that he will never ever see again for this company. What's even crazier, towards the end of the 60-minute special about SuperEGO, they actually bring on this Serbian whistleblower. And he actually blows the whistle on the dark things that these crooks do at the company.
They are only asking about making money from the driver, and they don't take care about safety standards.
He confirmed company dispatchers and managers were told to overwork and extort American drivers like Sanchez at every turn. He told us taking money from drivers became a competition. Lists like this were posted inside his Belgrade office. The more they took, the bigger their bonuses. During this pay period, the top dispatcher cut nearly $24,000, or 32% from drivers' pay.
That bless his driver's heart. Him deciding to interview with Lester Holt. I hope that's his name. That may not even be his name, but I know he works at CBS. I don't know, but bless his heart, because the owner, the CEO of SuperEGO, is actually closely tied to the Serbian government. In fact, I think he may be brothers with the Serbian president. So him going on that interview is at a great risk to him and his family. But as I've said multiple times earlier, SuperEGO has denied all allegations and accusations. In fact, their response to this special is essentially, they're not an actual carrier. And while that is true, they don't necessarily have a DOT number. You only see their name on the, logo on the trailers and on the trucks and whatnot, but they're not actually a carrier. They just lease equipment to drivers. Now, that's cool and all, but if you are just a company that leases equipment to drivers, why is it that you also have access to the pay of the drivers? You see what I'm saying? Like, you're no different than a Schneider that actually leases equipment to drivers and controls the paychecks of the equipment that they lease to the drivers. You're no different than any other of these mega carriers that offer leases to the driver. The only difference is you won't, be broke multiple weeks working at a mega carrier. In fact, he was better off working at a mega carrier being contracted to a mega carrier as a lease operator. As a matter of fact, how is it that you're just, a company that leases equipment to the drivers when, in fact, you push them to violate their hours of service, which is illegal for multiple reasons. For one, you can't drive past your hours of service. Two, these are independent contractors, so you can't really tell them to drive past their hours of service because by that point, they'd actually be employees, right? Right? But anyways, shout out to CBS for doing this interview. Content creators have been exposing SuperEGO for multiple years at this point. I'm sure stubborn people like Daniel Sanchez, like I said earlier, brushed it off and, decided that, oh, this is all just noise. I can make a shit ton of money here. They're promising $12,000 a week, yada, yada, yada. And ultimately they had a FAFO moment. But now SuperEGO is having an FAFO moment, and it's all lovely and glorious. Everything is coming full circle. Now, let me know what you guys think of this 60-minute special. You guys, as always, are the greatest. You guys are the best audience on the internet. And if you enjoy content like this, hit the like button, comment, rate, share, and subscribe. I am Tasia Ellison, and I will see you next time.